So we have a bunch of updates for you with regard to Trump's ICE deployments across the country, but wanted to start actually with a polling update. Of course, Trump and the Republicans took a lot of pride in the gains that they made with Latino voters, particularly in this election cycle, have really pinned a lot, actually staked a lot on this realignment of working class Latino voters towards Republicans. Let's check in on how that's going.
Latinos on Trump and immigration. You know, back a year ago, what did we see on the issue of immigration? Latino voters trusted Kamala Harris more than Donald Trump, but by just 2 points. 1, 2. Look now at Donald Trump's net approval rating on immigration among Latinos. He is 38 points underwater. That is a 36-point shift, essentially, from where we were a year ago on immigration. Kamala Harris and Donald Trump are basically tied on the issue of immigration. And now on the issue of immigration, Latinos despise, hate Donald Trump. Trump's net approval rating among Latinos. In early February, again, he was just 2 points underwater. Look at where he is now. Late October, minus 34 points, 34 points underwater, a shift of 32 points over the course of this year. I should point out this is the CBS News YouGov poll, but I was looking at the averager polls. I was looking at our own poll. Very similar shift, 20, 25, 30-point shifts on the net approval rating away from Donald Trump among Latinos overall. What did we learn from the 2025 elections? I took the highest Latino percentage area in both New Jersey and Virginia. New Jersey, it was Union City. Look at this, 2024 president, 2025 governorship. There was a 52, I'm laughing because you never see any numbers like this, a 52-point shift towards Mikey Sherrill from how Kamala Harris did on the margin. Mikey Sherrill ran away with this. Kamala Harris did win that vote, but by a small margin. Mikey Sherrill did 52 points better. How about in Virginia, Manassas Park? Look at that, a 22-point shift towards Abigail Spanberger from how Kamala Harris did back in 2024. We saw huge Latino shifts in both New Jersey and Virginia.
And I think, Saagar, that Latinos are one of the biggest swing blocks in America.
No question.
You know, Democrats really took for granted that, you know, Latino support, and also had this very caricaturish view of what they wanted in terms of, you know, super serving, a soft on immigration message, and that would be enough to hold them in the coalition forever. And you and I have been tracking, you know, especially in 2020, you saw these significant shifts down in Texas and the Rio Grande Valley. Then you saw in 2024 even more shifts towards Trump. And then I think Republicans have somewhat made the mistake of just assuming that, like, oh, now they're in our coalition and that's it and nothing is going to change.
That's just especially true in Texas, where a lot of the gerrymandering relies on the Latino swings.
Yes.
That's the biggest mistake. I mean, look, no constituency should be taken for granted. I do also think it's caricaturish to say that it's only about immigration.
Oh, I agree.
One of the things that we always said is, yeah, it turns out Latinos are like everybody else. And in terms of, we care about the economy. Actually, we're not all the same. Actually, a Puerto Rican in New York is not the same as a fifth-generation Mexican-ish guy in South Texas. Turns out, yes, we may understand each other's language. We're totally different. We have totally, you know, wants, dreams, whatever. Our entire daily life is distinctly different than also a Cuban or Paraguayan in South Florida, and then also a Chicano in Los Angeles. Like, we're all the same, okay? Actually, in that we're all different. That's it. And mostly we
We're all the
basically
same in that we're all different.
Yeah, we are.
So, yeah.
It's a tautology, but it's true. It's one of those where, yes, we are in a massive country. We all individually live in our areas where our wants, needs can be like ish the same, but the circumstances of our life are very different. And so we generally vote in terms of our own interests. And this is why, remember the Tony Hinchcliffe thing? They're like, oh, Puerto Ricans, oh, they're not going to take that. It's like, yeah, actually, they voted overwhelmingly for Trump, and especially down in South Florida. And it's like, yeah, why? Well, because it turns out like they're not like little sissies that can't take a joke. Again, just like everyone else. So in this case, I think they're net on immigration in the same way other people are net negative on immigration. They're like, oh, this feels chaotic. That's what it's about.
I mean, I would say that there may, just given the racial character of the way the immigration push has been executed with the Kavanaugh stops, the number of U.S. citizens who happen to look Latino or have Latino surnames or whatever, who have been stopped, who have been arrested, who haven't been believed, even when they pull out their driver's license. Like, I think it probably does hit a little extra if you're Latino and you see the way that people who look like you and, you know, have similar names, have similar ethnic backgrounds are being targeted. Your communities are the ones that are being, you know, most targeted by ICE. Like, I do think that that is is certainly a significant factor here as well. But in terms of the latest, so, Bovino's crew of Customs and Border Patrol, which are we talk about ICE as kind of a catch-all.
Yep.
CBP is actually the most aggressive, and Bovino he's the one who did the big apartment raid in Chicago. Like, he's been sort of the most wild and has the most like militarized sort of forces behind him. He also in Chicago, and I think this is part probably of why they're leaving the city of Chicago at this point, there were a bunch of court orders that came down to really constrain their use of force, in particular their use of tear gas, which had been totally just wild and indiscriminate. We showed you the video here of them like spraying tear gas into a car that was passing by that had a 1-year-old strapped into the seat. American citizens, by the way, 1-year-old strapped into the seat, and they just pepper spray them as they're driving by. So in any case, there have been a bunch of court orders against him. He had to admit in court that he had lied about a number of incidents as well. So they've left Chicago. Now they're in Charlotte. We can put C2 up on the screen. This is from a day ago. I don't know what the update is, but U.S. Border Patrol arrests 81 on first day of Charlotte immigration crackdown. We've seen backlash in the community there. There's, similar videos of Chicago coming out of Charlotte. And apparently the idea is to stay there for a relatively short period before heading down to New Orleans. We also have some numbers here about, okay, so, did they get the bad guys in Chicago? Was it all worth it? All the, Black Hawk helicopters zip tying children, pepper spraying near Halloween parades, shooting an American citizen who was an activist 5 times. Was this all worth it? Put C3 up on the screen. 2.6%, 16 people on the list of 614 that had to be provided to the court in one of these cases. 2.6% of them had any criminal history at all. I mean, that is so pathetic. It is. They said, I think in this article or one of the other ones that I read about this, that normal Chicago PD would in a single weekend come into contact and have dealings with more than 16 people with criminal records. So when they use all this rhetoric about the worst of the worst and these are the worst people on the planet, this is what we're actually talking about here. Barely any of these people had criminal histories. In the big apartment raid that they broadcast on social media, they were so proud of, they put out all this propaganda about, use the Black Hawk military helicopters, swoop in, knock down doors, drag out children in the middle of the night, American citizens, all the rest. Guess how many people they ended up charging from that? Zero. Again, we were told this building was infested with Trender Raga had taken over this building. It was lawless gang violence. I'm not going to say that there weren't any sort of crimes being committed in the building, because people had complained about, drug use and this sorts of thing that was going on. You had a total slumlord who owns the building, who's probably the one who, by the way, who called in ICE. What they were able to actually charge, though, 0 people out of this whole thing. So it's very important for people to understand the way that they will routinely lie and misrepresent what they're doing. And there was also, Saagar, just a big New York Times piece backing up other reporting as well, that because DHS has shifted their priorities, the actual, investigations into sex trafficking or human trafficking or drug dealing, those sorts of things have fallen by the wayside so that they can pick up Jose at the Home Depot.
Steph, administration doesn't have credibility on this. They haven't had credibility since CCOT, in my opinion.
Yeah.
That's painful for me to say, all right? I want deportation. I want law and order. I still think, broadly, I think criminals and all that should be prioritized, deported. And, yes, it's great. I know the left is now a refound love of deporting criminals and illegals, not that they ever actually wanted to under the Biden administration. But, okay, cool that we're now accepting that. It's very frustrating, to be honest, because you're watching the entire credibility of the ideas behind mass deportation or deportation itself be eroded. This is like an abolish ICE activist dream, to be honest. You have more political credibility than ever before. And the case of immigration restriction will probably be damaged now for generations to come. I think that's very damaging. And I do blame the administration, because they're the people who ultimately have to enact this policy, and I think that they've cartoonishly behaved, and they're creating more chaos. And so, yeah, I've just resigned. I'm like, look, I think it's over. I think we've got 3.5 years. They'll clownishly, continue this type, and then, do we have the Cernovich tweet?
Yeah, C5.
Can we put C5 up here on the screen? This has been sticking in my head I mean, I've also been saying it, but what he said, Mike is a prominent conservative activist. He says, during a recent visit in D.C., the talk of everyone was how overt the corruption was. It's at levels you read about in history books. In nearly every department, lots of, do people just think Democrats will never win and they'll all get away with this? And I mean, I think this not just about immigration. I think about this broadly with a lot of the administration. And you can make fun.
Such a cash grab.
You can make fun all you want. There were lots of well-meaning people in the election who voted for legitimate immigration concerns. And ultimately, you know, the crime for people who use those, you know, to then not only enrich themselves, but do damage to the cause, it's devastating. I mean, it's one of those where, like, look, you know, if you think back for, I don't know, let's say Biden, and he, you know, if you believed in those types of politics, and then you have a bad leader and a bad administration who does tremendous justice, like that's that's criminal, right? Actually, because it's really a lot of voters and others. And we talked yesterday about the whole Fuentes like racialism thing. I mean, they're doing everything in their power to try and basically empower this like racialist view of the world basically at this point. And yeah, I mean, it's honestly like, it's really depressing, because what it does show you is how cartoonish like the behavior here is. And look, I'm not going to deny there are real people's lives who are also at stake here.
Yeah.
I mean, I maintain, even if you're, quote, not a criminal and you came here illegally, I still think you should be deported. But, you know, good luck making that argument in the future. If people look at Black Hawk helicopters and all this other stuff, they're going to say, at the end of the day, I'm not willing to make that trade-off. I'll continue to make the case. I still believe it. But if this is the way that it actually, it's kind of like when people try to defend socialism or whatever, and everyone's always like, well, you know, look at, has it ever worked before, right? If the practical example that anyone in modern memory can have of this, they're going to be deeply skeptical for generations to come. And I think that, you know, I think my friend Reihan Salam wrote this years ago about Trump, and maybe he was right. He wrote it back in 2015. He's like an OG immigration restrictionist. And he was like, I think Trump will do damage to the cause for you. I actually ridiculed him at the time. I'm like, well, he's the only one who won. And, you know, now he won again in 2024, but perhaps he's been vindicated in the long run.
Interesting. Speaking of that corruption piece, put C4 up on the screen. This is just cartoon
it's like shit like
I mean,
this.
this is crazy. Kristi Noem, who loves to do these freaking photo shoots and is just an embarrassing person in general. Oh, lo and behold, ProPublica, by the way, has been doing some very good reporting. Firm tied to Kristi Noem secretly got money from $220 million DHS ad contracts. What do we even need DHS ads for to begin with? You guys want to see what these ads look like, and then I can tell you more about the details of this firm and who all is involved with it. Let's go ahead and play C6. This is one of the ads that this firm was involved with creating.
Why do I love these wide open spaces? They remind me of why our forefathers came here, not just for its beauty, but for the freedom only America provides. I'm Kristi Noem. From the cowboys who tamed the West, to the titans who built our cities, to the dreamers who chased the impossible, America has always rewarded vision and grit. Our greatness calls people to us for a chance to prosper, to live how they choose, to become part of something special. Anyone who searches for freedom can always find a home here, but that freedom's a precious thing, and we defend it vigorously. You cross the border illegally, we'll find you. Break our laws, we'll punish you. Harm American citizens, there will be consequences. But if you come here the right way, your American dream can be as big as these endless skies. From President Trump and me, welcome home.
Okay, so her little dress-up deal.
I'd noticed some of these ads, and I was like, this is a little weird.
Little weird.
Yeah, well, because on Fox News in particular, they'd be like, you need to leave. And I was like, how many illegals are watching Fox News? I mean, I'm only watching Fox News because I have to for work,
Do you
right?
really think that some ad of Kristi Noem and a horse is like going to change your decision about where? I mean, it's a total vanity project. She, like probably many others, wants to run for president, I assume. And so this is a way they've flooded, the big beautiful bill flooded DHS and ICE with just insane amounts of cash. And so this is the type of shit that they're doing with it. This little ad campaign, which by the way, so again, $220 million, they kept one beneficiary of the 9-figure ad deal a secret, according to ProPublica. Records and interviews show a Republican consulting firm with long-standing personal and business ties to Noam and her senior aides at DHS. The company running the Mount Rushmore shoot, called the Strategy Group, does not appear on public documents about the contract. The main recipient listed on the contracts is a mysterious Delaware company, which was created days before the deal was finalized. No firm has closer ties to Noam's political operation than the Strategy Group. Played a central role in her 2022 South Dakota gubernatorial campaign. Corey Lewandowski, who is not only her top advisor at DHS, which is the part they put in here, is also her rumored boyfriend, has worked extensively with the firm, and the company's CEO is married to Noam's chief spokesperson, Tricia McLaughlin. So there you go. Strategy Group's ad work is the first known example of money flowing from Noam's agency to businesses controlled by her allies and friends. And, you know, there's this no secret why they decided to hide this, because it is blatantly and clearly disgustingly corrupt and just, you know, total cash grab at every level of this administration. And it's true, you know, I keep thinking about Steve Bannon telling, I don't remember what conference he was at, he was like, you know, if the Democrats get back in power, some of us are going to prison. Now, I don't think, you know, Bannon's already been to prison. I'm not aware of him committing any new crimes, so he's not at the top of my list. But, like, yes, this level of corrupt dealing, it should be punished. The level of lawlessness, like when crimes are broken, I do think that some of these officials should fear for their freedom after this administration is through. Because I can tell you the Democratic base is going to be looking for a candidate in 2028 who is willing to say Stephen Miller and Kristi Noem should be in jail.
I mean, you know, can't say you weren't warned. And yes, if you cartoonishly disregard the law, I mean, in Kristi Noem's case or Stephen Miller, even if my opinion is what's going to happen is Trump on his way out will do the Hunter Biden thing, the preemptive pardon for any and all whatever. And so, no, I don't think anybody's going to prison. But whenever it comes to investigations in the interim, what a lot of people don't know is that the government doesn't pay, let's say, for your legal fees, like when you get called before Congress, especially if it's on a private matter. And so many officials, this happened in the Clinton administration, this happened in the first Trump administration. You'll remember I said this during Doge. I was like, man, I hope you guys are, you know, Elon will be fine. He's rich. Everybody else, I'm like, you better lawyer up, because when the Dems come calling in the House Oversight Committee with subpoenas, these guys charge like $1,000 an hour. And sometimes they can take 12, 15 hours for transcripts and for interviews. And you need a counsel in the room that entire time. Or when you're calling before, like that level, look, that's how government has worked now, basically, since the Kenneth Starr affair. Like, every time the opposition party, no matter who it is in power, they try to do investigations and subpoena power and all of that. And yes, there's a huge political incentive. So if you're, see, Kristi Noem, I think she'll probably figure it out, donors. If you're Tricia McLaughlin or like one of the junior people, those are the ones where I'm like, I would be very worried if I were you.
Or, you know, some of these ICE guys who are out on the street, like, just because Stephen Miller or Greg Bavina or whatever told you to do it doesn't mean that you're totally protected. I mean, this actually dovetails into the Venezuela segment we're about to do, where some of these military service members who are being tasked with like murdering random people in the Caribbean or in the Pacific are seeking outside legal counsel. Because they are concerned about their own legal liability, and they do not trust the guidance that they're getting within the administration.
Hey, if you like that video, hit the like button or leave a comment below. It really helps get the show to more people.
And if you'd like to get the full show ad-free and in your inbox every morning, you can sign up at breakingpoints.com.
That's right. Get the full show, help support the future of independent media at breakingpoints.com.